Hey everyone, it's your girl Vashanae, aka Rebel by Nature, and I am back with another video. So I would like to give a huge shout out to all of my new subscribers. Thank you so much for subscribing to my channel and becoming one of the Rebels. And also, if you have not, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so that you can become a Rebel too. So, as you can see by the title of this video, I guess I'll be stepping on a couple of toes today. Some of y'all gonna be mad, but I don't care. So, I'm going to be talking all about why I have decided not to celebrate Thanksgiving. So, if you're interested, stay tuned. So, what I've decided to do is read you guys a couple of excerpts from different websites that I have found detailing the history of Thanksgiving. Just to give you guys facts and not just how I feel. So, I want to give you guys the facts explaining why I feel the way that I feel about celebrating Thanksgiving. So, as I'm looking down, I'm going to be reading off of my tablet, and also I'll link the sources down in the description box below so that way you guys can get to the excerpts and read them in their entirety, because I won't be reading all of it, just a couple of pieces that I think are important. The first article I'm going to be reading is from the SmithsonianMagazine.com. It's called The Myths of Thanksgiving. It's called The Myths of the Thanksgiving Story and the Lasting Damage They Imbue. So what are the myths? What is the Thanksgiving myth? The myth is that friendly Indians, unidentified by tribe, welcome the pilgrims to America, teach them how to live in this new place, sit down to dinner with them, and then disappear. They hand off America to white people so they can create a great nation dedicated to liberty, opportunity, and Christianity for the rest of the world to profit. That's the story. It's about Native people conceding to colonialism. It's bloodless and in many ways an extension of the ideology of manifest destiny. The most inaccurate part of this story is the shared dinner between the Indians, well, the Native Americans and the colonists, the Europeans. The fact that they did share a dinner, but it wasn't because it was friendly. It's because the chief needed help. He needed alliances against his rivals. This myth-making was also impacted by the racial politics of the late 19th century. The Indian Wars were coming to a close, and that was an opportune time for the Indians included in the national founding myth. You couldn't have done that when people were reading newspapers accounts on a regular basis of atrocious violence between white Americans and Native Americans in the West. What's more, during Reconstruction, the Thanksgiving myth allowed New Englanders to create this idea that bloodless colonialism is their religion, is their region, and was the origin of the country, having nothing to do with the Indian Wars and slavery. Americans could feel good about their colonial past without having to confront the really dark characteristics of it. So the next article is from Delish.com, and it's called The Real History of Thanksgiving Isn't the One You Learned in School. Here's How to Celebrate Smarter by Kristen Salaki. As the Smithsonian points out, discussions of this event are often centered around the settlers, but Native Americans had been on the land for centuries before, and the story from their perspective obviously far predates this feast. When Europeans began coming to what is now known as the United States about 4 years before the Mayflower arrived, they carried foreign illnesses which killed Native people at exceedingly high rates. That then made it easier for colonizers to take over the lands. There's also the fact that settlers came to the land to kidnap and sell Native Americans to slavery. The newly settled Europeans also did not invite the Native Americans to their feast. The leader of the Wampanoag tribe had declared an alliance with the settlers, and members of the tribe were showing up to honor a mutual defense pact. They heard the pilgrims shooting their guns in celebration and thought they were in combat. After some talk, they decided to spend 3 days together and join the feast. But this type of coming together did not become a warm, fuzzy tradition as you may have been taught in school. From then on, pilgrims celebrated Thanksgiving in their traditional way of fasting and praying, according to the New Yorker. Several times this happened because of the massacres of Native people, including in 1637 when Massachusetts colony governor John Winthrop declared a day of Thanksgiving after volunteers murdered 700 Pequot people. I don't know if I said that correctly, but they murdered over 700 people. This incident is often cited as the first official mention of Thanksgiving ceremony and is another commonly cited origin story for the Thanksgiving we know today. So why is Thanksgiving still so controversial? The atrocities against Native Americans did not end with diseases or massacres mentioned above, so seeing people celebrating the positive myth around Thanksgiving can be frustrating and painful for many, especially indigenous people. Combine that with the fact that some non-natives choose to dress up in things like headdresses in honor of Thanksgiving, which is seen as a mockery of said dress. However, like all groups, Native Americans are not a monolith and have different perspectives on Thanksgiving. For example, some tribes view the holiday as a national day of mourning. They see it as a day settlers came to their land, spurring decades of violence and mistreatment. Thanksgiving today is a reminder of the genocide of millions of Native people, the theft of Native lands, and the relentless assault on Native culture. They've marked the occasion as a day of mourning for 48 years, according to Native Hope. Participants in a day of mourning honor Native ancestors and the struggle of Native peoples to survive today. It is a day of remembrance and spiritual connection, as well as a protest of the racism and oppression which Native Americans continue to experience. Alright, so the next article is from thebusinessinsider.com. The title of it is "The True Story Behind Thanksgiving and Its Bloody Struggle to Decimate the Population and End It with the Head on a Stick." This one is juicy, y'all. Peace didn't last between the English settlers and their one-time Wampanoag allies. The two became embroiled in a devastating war just a generation after the famous feast. Let's fast forward a little bit into the story. So thousands of English colonists poured into the region throughout the 17th century, and authorities in Plymouth began asserting power over most aspects of Wampanoag life, as settlers increasingly ate up more lands. So King Philip's War was sparked when several of the Native American men were executed for the murder of the Christian convert John Sassamon. Wampanoag warriors responded by embarking on a series of raids, and the New England Confederation of Colonies declared war in 1675. The initial neutral colony of Rhode Island and Providence plantations was ultimately dragged into the fighting, as were other nearby tribes like the Narragansetts. The war was bloody and devastating. Springfield, Massachusetts was burned to the ground. The Wampanoag abducted colonists for ransom. English forces attacked the Narragansetts on a bitter, frozen swamp for harboring fleeing Wampanoag. 600 Narragansetts were killed. I hope I'm saying that correctly, y'all. And the tribe's winter stores were ruined. Colonists in far-flung settlements relocated to more fortified areas, while the Wampanoag and allied tribes were forced to flee their villages. So meanwhile, King Philip was dealt a staggering blow when he crossed over into New York to recruit allies. Instead, he was rebuffed and attacked by Mohawks. Upon his return to his ancestral home at Mount Hope, he was shot and killed in a final battle. The son of the man who had sustained and celebrated with the Plymouth colony was then beheaded and dismembered, according to It Happened in Rhode Island. His remaining allies were killed or sold into slavery in the West Indies. The colonists impaled King Philip's head on a spike and displayed it in Plymouth for 25 years. Give starting to add up, y'all. It's starting to make sense. So the last article that I have from the internet is from the NewYorkTimes.com. It's called "Everything You Learned About Thanksgiving is Wrong." It's been taught that pilgrims came because they were seeking religious freedom, but that's not entirely true. The pilgrims had religious freedom in Holland, where they first arrived in the early 17th century. Like those who settled in Jamestown, Virginia in 1607, the pilgrims came to North America to make money. They were also coming here in order to establish a religious theocracy, which they did. That's not exactly the same as coming here for religious freedom. It's kind of coming here against religious freedom. So let's fast forward to Squanto. Y'all remember Squanto, right? So, Squanto did play a large role in helping the pilgrims, as American children were taught, like we was taught in school, baby. His people, the Pautet, a band of the Wampanoag tribe, had lived on the site where the pilgrims settled. When they arrived, he became a translator for them in diplomacy and trade with other native people, and showed them the most effective methods for planting corn and best locations to fish. That's usually where the lesson ends, but that's just a fraction of the story. Squanto was captured by the English in 1614 and later sold into slavery in Spain. He spent several years in England where he learned English. He returned to New England in 1619, only to find his entire Pautet tribe dead from smallpox. He met the pilgrims in March 1621. So knowing what you know now, after me reading a couple of excerpts, and hopefully you doing the research yourself, I can't get behind it. I just can't do it. So I can't eat and feast in memory of a massacre of people. And then 9 times out of 10, a lot of us black people have Native American blood running through our veins. A lot of our grandparents and great-grandparents are full-blooded or at least have Indians. So how can you sit around and celebrate the destruction of some of your people? I don't get it. And then it's just a holiday that's built off of hate. And I'm the type of person, I try to lead with love. Even though I call myself a rebel, I'm rebelling against all things that have been taught to me in society that are quote unquote the right way to be. Like apparently being black is wrong in America as well. Also, if it was a positive holiday, why do you think a lot of Native American people don't celebrate it? Do you ever see a Native American person around Thanksgiving time? That's basically when you probably would see him if it was an actual celebration. Does that make sense? Like, why celebrate something that hurt so many people and is still hurting people? The Native American history is even more sad than the history of black people. Like, they've suffered way longer than we have. Like, they got pushed out of their land and we were the ones that were forced into building it. So we all have our intertwined histories and we all played a part in the demise of other people. So I know that we're all rebels and all, and we make our own decisions. So I would like to encourage you to do the research on your own and figure out whether or not Thanksgiving is something that you can get behind. So with that being said, I would like to offer a prayer of liberation for our ancestors, the ones who have done wrong without even realizing that they did. Because after we were freed from slavery, we celebrated Thanksgiving as well. And I have celebrated Thanksgiving as well in the past. So in order to relinquish our ancestors from their sins of their past, I would like to offer a prayer of liberation. So bow your head and pray with me. I sincerely pray for all my ancestors for whom I am providentially responsible. I ask that the content and energy of this prayer be used to educate and liberate my ancestors who are guilty of wrongdoings against the will of the Creator. I ask that through this prayer, my ancestors be forgiving of the sins they committed while on earth, as I vicariously repent for them. I am deeply sorry for their actions, not in accordance with your divine will, Great Spirit, and I apologize for them on their behalf. Please forgive them. I also lovingly admonish my ancestors to give up all negative thoughts and feelings by forgiving everyone who hurt you while you were here on earth. Only by forgiving and thus giving up your negative state of mind will you be able to grow in the spirit world. Hear this prayer and gain understanding. Apply what I am telling you, and you will find yourself gradually ascending into the higher level of existence in the spirit world. Serve your descendants and others on earth and in the spirit world with a loving and grateful heart, and you will most easily and quickly overcome your negative, self-inhibiting thoughts and feelings. Y'all, that was beautiful. So I'm extending an invitation of healing to you and your ancestors, so that way we can end this never-ending cycle of hurt in the land. Like, America was built off of so much hurt, so much pain, and we need to start healing. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, leave it down in the comment section, and I do want to open it up for discussion. So if you have anything that you would like to add, make sure you leave it down in the comment section. But all negative comments will be ignored or deleted. So if you would like to have a discussion, that's one thing, but an argument, I'm not about to do it. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.